What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mind of Marsal podcast. This is episode number 147. I'm your host, Armando Marsal. You can find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. Follow me on the Twitter machine at Armando underscore Marsal, as well as on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Mind of Marsal. Before jumping into it, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you all. Remember, if you're enjoying the podcast, enjoying the content, please make sure you follow, rate, review, like the podcast wherever it is you are consuming it. Welcome back to the show. And for you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome aboard as we wrap up our division by division series, recapping the 2025 season and looking ahead at 2026. Today, we close things out with the NFC East. We're going to be breaking down all the coaching changes throughout the division, how these teams and roster looks following free agency, and still looking ahead at the NFL draft and some potential team needs here with me as he's been doing each and every week, is Tyler Buecher to break this all down. Tyler, how's it going, brother?
Doing pretty well here, Armando. Had a good weekend here. Went to a pimento cheese festival, which was kind of a fun little thing to do. Got some cheese and different barbecues and some beers. It was a fun time. How about you? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. That sounds like a hell of a time. Like, dude, beer and cheese. That sounds like a really, really good weekend there.
Yeah.
I'm a big cheese connoisseur as well. I tell you that, man. That's one of my weaknesses. Bread and cheese, two weaknesses, and that's why I love pizza. It's bread and cheese essentially,
Yeah.
dude. But my weekend was good, man. You and I talked a little bit before we jumped on. I took with the kids and I went to the card show. And it was pretty cool, man. They had some Pokemon cards. They did some buying, some trading, some selling. I also came out with a couple of cards myself. I didn't splurge too much, but did buy some fun cards to add to the collection, man. So definitely a cool experience. I had never done that with the kids. They're big into cards or whatnot, but that was for me a pretty cool experience, and I'm glad we did it. Now they're looking for the next one, man. So it's probably a
Yeah.
thing that I'm gonna start doing often here with these kids. So yeah, man, it was a good weekend overall. But like you said, man, we're here. We're going to talk some NFC East. I thought it was a fun division last year. There was some, fun moments for some of these teams. There was obviously a disappointing year, I think, for Washington, who, had a big 2024 and then just was not that same team last year. A lot of injuries. Dallas's offense was clicking on all cylinders last year. Their defense was not. The Eagles, were not able to return to the Super Bowl after winning it the previous year, but they won this division at 11-6. Dallas was second in this division in 7-9. Washington finished third at 5-12, and the Giants finished 4-13 in this division. But I'll tell you this, man, I do think there's some bright things to take away from this New York season, and the fact that they hit on Jackson Dart, man, like that was big for this offense, and I think they have a franchise quarterback there. Tyler, overall thoughts on this division? I know you're a big Eagles fan over there, but overall thoughts on not only your Eagles, but the rest of this division from the 2025 season.
Yeah, the NFC East is always a competitive one. This year, no different. The Eagles took a step backward. I think losing their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, huge in terms of what we saw with Kevin Patullo. Really just kind of took everything on a downturn. For much of the season, they ended up turning things a bit around, but yeah, I would say a relatively down year for Philadelphia. The Commanders also a down year after the Jayden Daniels big offensive rookie of the year campaign. Saw some injuries hit them across the board. Really kind of just never got going there. And Daniels himself battling injuries, just it was tough for that offense in terms of like them getting going. What else? The Giants. I mean, you mentioned the addition of Jackson Dart. I think Cam Scadaboo also was a huge addition. You combine that with Malik Neighbors, that's a good young core of like offensive skill position players. Really excited for their future here in the division. And then Dallas. I mean, the addition of Pickens. Man, we all were really excited about drafting him. Nobody really thought top five status, but he was electric. Joining this Dallas Cowboys offense. Dak Prescott stayed healthy, finished the year 4,500 yards, and their defense just kind of held them back. But I mean, when we look at this from like a fantasy lens, just a broad view, there's a lot of excitement here in the NFC East as we get ready for 2026.
Yeah, man, a ton of excitement. And to, for the Giants, like it was sad that we couldn't see it all like together for an entire season, right? With all the
Yeah.
injuries, Malik Neighbors season-ending injury, Cam Scadaboo season-ending injury, Jackson Dart missed some time. Like I'm actually very excited to see it all together in 2026, like because there are a lot of exciting players on this offense, right? Like and Wando Robinson not, but that's fine. It's okay. We don't need him in New York here, but yeah, man, I agree with you. I think this is a fun division. I think there's a lot of, fantasy takeaways that we're going to have here. I think there's a lot of, pluses. I do think there's some negatives as well across the division here. So We're gonna break it all down here. We're going team by team. We do it each and every week. We do it alphabetical order. Doesn't change this week, which leads us to kicking things off with the Dallas Cowboys. And when you look at this team, look, the offense was really good. Dak Prescott, was healthy. This offense was rolling. You mentioned the addition of George Pickens. I think Javonte Williams, having a career year there for them. We were big Williams fans in previous seasons. Kind of, we're a little bit. I was a little bit hesitant at least going into the 2025 season. Really didn't know what kind of running back we were going to get. He showcased exactly what we were all expecting during his time in Denver that never came to fruition. He showcased that last year. I was very excited to see him perform to the way he did. He's back with the team. When you look at this offense, really they retained George Pickens. He's back with the team as well. This not many changes offensively here. Like when you look at this Dallas offense, not many changes offensively. Defensive side of the football, they did add some players here with Rashawn Gary. That was a big addition there. They have a new defensive coordinator in Christian Parker, so that's noteworthy here. But when you look at this team, Tyler, from 2025, the fact that they're bringing this offense back, I'm very excited to watch this. I think this is going to be a fantasy gold mine, really, when you look at all these players. Yeah, you're probably going to have to pay a hefty price tag for some of these guys, but I'm willing to pay. This is an offense that I think is going to, so long as they stay healthy, is going to perform, including Jake Ferguson, really, because he was someone who bounced back significantly. And we talked about it before last year, before the season started. I believe you were also, kind of into Jake Ferguson. And he was someone that just didn't perform because Dak Prescott wasn't healthy the year before. When everyone stays healthy, this offense has a lot of talent and it could produce very high end numbers here. So, talk to me about this offense. Obviously not many changes on offense, not many changes really. Defense, they've added some pieces. They have new coordinator, but overall, the team overall, it's pretty similar than it was last year.
Yeah, they're kind of expected to run it back essentially. They lost Miles Sanders. Depth piece wasn't really super involved. Jalen Tolbert goes to Miami, but that's really it in terms of like key contributors that were involved last season. I'm just kind of expecting this offense to go as far as Dak could take them. And that's really just been like a night and day thing with Dak being healthy versus not healthy. He missed most of last year, so there was a lot of production left on the table. Big bounce back there in 2025. He stayed healthy, played a full 17 games, 4,500 passing yards, 30 passing touchdowns, earned a Pro Bowl nod. He was quarterback one in most completions. So like we're looking at a lot of volume here for this passing attack. And a lot of that has not only to do with Dak and the play calling, but the lack of players they've got on this defense is also just going to keep them in this pass-heavy script, I think, for this upcoming year. I don't think that's going to be a big change, even with the new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, in the fold. He comes over from Philadelphia, where he was a defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator for the past few years. Served for the Broncos as DB coach prior to that, but he's a young dude, like 34 years old. We're going to see a new 3-4 scheme here, multiple looks. But I like the thought of like, what can a Vic Fangio disciple do now after working under Fangio for the past few years with that two high safety with the split field coverage? I think it's just going to be a whole new look for this whole defense, especially compared night and day of 2025 versus 2026. Like Matt Eberflus, very heavy cover three. We're going to see quite a bit of a change schematically here from this defense. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to. Flipping to the offense, I think you nailed it in terms of continuity. Perhaps the only change might be at RB2, where we saw some quotes where they expect it to be more of a competitive position this upcoming season, but they've got to get the young guys going. That was a quote from their head coach. I feel like there was a call out basically on Jayden Blue, who didn't really ever take off last year despite getting the capital. And many of us kind of expecting him to arise from that murky backfield situation entering the year. Ended up being Javonte, who was left for dead. Man, what a resurrection for him. Happy for him. Career best across the board. Rewarded with a 3-year, $24 million contract. Looked pretty good there in yards after contact, especially top three among all backs with 100 plus carries. Um, yeah, I mean, they finished the year top, like I mentioned how heavily they were passing, but as far as the run game went, they were top 12 across the board in yards before contact, EPA per rush, overall rush success rate. And it likens me to the old Dallas teams that invested heavily in the offensive line. We've kind of seen that happen again, where there's been some heavy capital thrown there, and we're seeing the returns on it. Like even a guy like Javonte, who had some struggles in Denver, mostly due to injury, mostly due to the recovery from those injuries, really put up a phenomenal season. And he's currently now RB19 in fantasy drafts right now. I'm very comfortable with that click, given that what I'm expecting to be an offense that's going to need to put up points week in and week out. So even if they're falling behind in games due to their defense, Javante's do it all role kind of just makes everything exciting here. Um, CD Lamb, you and I are always big fans of Lamb ever since the end of the league. If we take out the partial games where he played less than 50% of the snaps, he was averaging 9.8 targets per game, 16.5 fantasy points per game. So like Lamb was his typical productive inside outside self when healthy. Moved around the formation a ton, very explosive. When we look at the cross comparison of Lamb and Pickens in games together, he bested Pickens in air yards during those games. We think of Pickens as the vertical field stretcher. Lamb is no slouch in that department either. So I think there's a good chance that we see a big rebound from Lamb and maybe a bit of a drop off from Pickens, who did some of his biggest games came whenever Lamb was out of the lineup there. What are your thoughts on the passing attack specifically here?
Yeah, so look, 23% target share for Lamb when healthy, 23% target share for Pickens this season. Like I'm not worried about Lamb. I know that there was some games where the production wasn't there, but like you mentioned, it was games where he was not playing at 100%. He missed 3 games as well last season. Like these, and when you have a player like Pickens on the offense, like you don't have to push that player like CD Lamb to go 100 and you're not 100%, right? Maybe you're just out there as a decoy. And defenses bid on that. Pickens went off. Like a lot of that happened this season. I think CeeDee Lamb is just fine despite playing 14 games. He went over 1,000 receiving yards again. Like he's really good. One of the best in the business. I think he can line up anywhere. He's proven that already throughout his career. So for me, I'm buying in on him. I'm buying in on Pickens too. I mean, we saw what Pickens is very capable of doing with a quarterback that's slinging it. You mentioned he was but what Dak Prescott was number one in completions. He was number two in attempts. Like they're passing the ball. And this defense has added pieces, but this is still a defense that's a work in progress. And as much as I expect them to, emphasize defense in the draft, I still don't know if that's going to be enough to put them in a position where now they're stopping opposing offenses, especially right in the division that they're in, because a lot of these offenses are potent and have a lot of good weapons. So um, I do think that they're going to have to pass here. I do think that just this an offense is going to get a lot of opportunities. We've seen it. They like to play fast. I don't think that changes. Williams, man, like Javonte Williams, he phenomenal year there, like you mentioned. 300 plus opportunities. I think that's in order again. Jayden Blue was unfortunately a bust last year because like you, I thought he was going to be at least competing for a 50-50 workload, honestly. Like that's what I had envisioned for Jayden Blue, where it was going to be early downs, Javonte, then Jayden Blue does, the third down, the passing down. That never came to fruition. Uh, the early depth charts right now, and these are unofficial, like they have him third. I think he's going to be competing for that number two spot. I believe they have Malik. Is it Malik Davis number two? I could pull it up. I think
Yeah,
so.
him and Phil Maffa, they're all kind of
Yeah,
battling it together.
yeah. And then they also have an Akana, but that's just digging so far, right? Like, I honestly think it's for Williams, Blue, and then Davis. Like, that's kind of what we're going to see here in the mix. What are you doing with Blue? So, like, I think this is an interesting conversation to have because in Dynasty, like, you cannot sell, in my opinion, because you're not going to get anything. At least I don't think many people are going to be willing to pay what you probably paid for Jayden Blue. Um, uh, and then buying, are you would you consider buying at, cents on the dollar at this point if you're in Dynasty, or do you not want to be involved in this situation?
No, I think it's a fair question. When I look back at like what I thought of him in the class, I had him as my RB14. So he wasn't really a player that you were spending high draft capital to acquire in your rookie drafts, more just kind of a dart throw. And he just kind of had a very cloudy situation in terms of immediate opportunity in 2025. That kind of just went away after the Javante signing and the Javante extension now. I think that RB2 role is just super murky, where at this point, I don't think we have an answer for who will be that guy for the Cowboys. They'll probably let it play out in camp. Um, I know the staff was not encouraged by what we saw from Blue. There were healthy scratches. He was consistently not he was consistently inconsistent in practice, which was why he never really got elevated on game day. And I don't know if that's a reason to get super into him. I mean, he was 21 years old when he entered the league, so he's kind of a young guy, but I'll be honest. I'm kind of if I don't see it in year one, I'm really hesitant to think that he's a guy that has a chance to suddenly make like leaps and bounds and become super fantasy relevant. So no, I think unless you get him as like a throw-in, which I doubt many people are really willing to bail on him at this point, especially with Javante's injury history. Unless you're getting a major discount, he's probably not going to be a guy that I'm going to be acquiring in dynasty formats.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page, right? Like I if I have him, I'm holding unless I get a good offer. Um, but I'm not in the business of going out of my way and buying unless, like you said, it's a throw in or if it's costing you, fifth round pick. It's like something like egregious, right? Like where you're just
Yeah.
not going to happen. In most leagues, it's not going to happen. So at that point, I'm not in the business of buying him unless I'm getting him for an absolute steal. Like that's kind of where I'm at with him. Um, Dak Prescott, where I view him as an every week starter so long as he's healthy, dude. Like I just that's the kind of quarterback he is. We know what he brings to the table. He's just someone that has missed time throughout his career because of injuries, right? So where are you at with Prescott as far as fantasy wise? And do you think he has what it takes to really take Dallas to that next level? Because you said at the beginning, it caught my attention. I meant to ask you. You said the Dallas Cowboys are going to go as far as Dak Prescott takes them. How far do you think he can take them?
I think he's a fantastic quarterback. I've been a big Dak fan for years. Top 10 last year in EPA per play, top 10 in success rate, top 10 in fantasy points per game. The addition of Pickens really helped this offense give them a legitimate weapon across from Lamb, something that they've been seeking for quite a bit. You throw in the big contract for their tight end, Jake Ferguson, who signed a 4-year, $50 million contract extension the previous offseason. There's a lot of targets that are super concentrated, but we know that it's all going to lean on the arm of Dak. He just needs to stay healthy. He's not rushing like he used to, so it's really going to come down to volume. Last year, this team was pretty high in pass rate over expectation. They were top 10 in that category due to a leaky defense. Again, I think there's a lot of moving parts on this defense where it might take some time for everything to come together. So maybe very early in the season, we could see some really good outings from Dak and company, but we just need everybody to stay healthy. And that's kind of been the tough part for Dallas in recent seasons. Just it's just been a tough element for them to overcome. So how far do I think the Cowboys make it? They were 7-9 last year. They had the tie 7-9-1, that the one tie against the Packers. But I don't know. What are we looking at here? 10-win team. I think that's the best case scenario. I think the defense just holds them back from getting any further than 10 plus wins.
Yeah, 11 wins max, I think is the number. Really depends on like the rest of the division, how healthy they can stay and things like that. I think there's so many moving parts, but yes, I think Dallas is that this roster is a 10 to 11 win team. 500 wouldn't be surprising either, right? Like that
Yeah.
would shock me. Especially this is a tough division. Like that's the thing. You've been saying, the defense, they continue to hold it back. For team needs, man, it's really defense, right? For me, I have the defensive back, I have linebacker as a need, I have defensive line as a need. Like those are the three things I have highlighted. I mentioned that they added, the linebacker Gary. Here they also added Jalen Thompson, safety there. They added Kobe Durant cornerback there. They've added some pieces here, but I still think it's really a need here to address the defense in general, like not just specifically. I'm talking about linebacker needs addressing, defensive line, and corners as well. I think can still use some help here. What are your thoughts on this defense, and then what do you have for team needs here for Dallas?
So again, they want to do a 3-4 look, but they also want to be multiple, so they'll be mixing things around quite a bit. The big trade was for Gary. I thought that was very notable, adding him as like a pass rusher. He'll be at that outside linebacker position. Across from him, as Riku, the round two pick from I think it was Ohio State last year. Those two guys will be their primary pass rushers. But yeah, I think adding a third guy would be of note and of need. Sam Williams, kind of a depth piece there. The addition of Kobe Durant. The Rams were really quick to replace Kobe Durant, like in free agency. They did all those trades for the Chiefs' former cornerbacks. So I think they were kind of just like, all right, we're kind of done with you, Durant. We'll just let you go and test free agency, bring in guys of note that we know can be difference makers. I mean, they're probably all in on the Stafford final season. Um, and the Durant contract, it was a 1-year flyer, basically, 1 year, $5 million, 5.5. Siobhan Rivell was a round three pick from last year, barely played, about 200 coverage snaps. He ranked 12th worst in passer rating when targeted. So I think outside cornerback, definitely a need there. I feel like they're just kind of seeing what they've got here in Durant and Rivell, not really sold on them, so to speak, in terms of like long-term answers. Off-ball linebacker, Demarion Overshone. I really like what I've seen from him. This dude's super athletic. Missed some time due to injury, but that's one position. They were throwing S at the wall last year, just hoping anything stuck, like just due to injuries, just the constant rotation. Um, yeah, so I think adding somebody there would be of note. The Jalen Thompson addition at safety, good add there from Arizona. PJ Locke, another good depth piece, but I wouldn't be shocked if they added another safety just because of youth and age. And what else was I looking at? Oh, depth at wide receiver. I mean, we got Lamb and
Yeah.
Pickens, but it's super top heavy. I mean, Kavontae Turpin is clearly a gadget. Like I like Ryan Flournoy. I think that's super interesting for like, let's say you're doing Dallas stacks and best ball. Like he's a great round 20 selection.
Yeah.
You could say the same for Turpin, where Flournoy is an injury away from a prominent role. We saw him actually do pretty well last year at times. We used a DFS punt play a few weeks for us. And then Turpin's that guy that could just take any touch to the house. Former spring football player, MVP. I'll always have a soft spot for him in my heart, but those are round 20 picks in best ball. Like that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, more so in stacks, right? Not one
Yeah.
offs. Yeah, more so in
Stacks.
stacks. Yeah, I like the Flournoy call out. He flashed at times last year, man. He was fun to
Yeah,
watch sometimes.
he
He was
was.
definitely he was definitely a DFS value play we targeted several times throughout the season there. It was a pass heavy offense. Jake Ferguson, you mentioned him, man. Like I want to touch base on him because when you look at where he finished last year, tied in four, in PPR scoring, he was tied in 10 in PPR points per game. Just a significant role, 17% target share. Now done that 3 consecutive years where he's carved out a 17% target share each and every season. Just a big part of, this offense. And then obviously a big red zone threat, right? Yeah, they 8 touchdowns last year as well. Um, are you taking someone like Jake Ferguson in your fantasy? Like, because when you look at his ADP, where do you have where do you have your ADP? Where do you have him going? Because I currently have him going tight end 13, right?
Yeah, I have to
And
pull it up. But
and
go
I
ahead.
I think that's a steal. Like to me, like tight end 13 for Jake Ferguson, that's a steal. Because we've seen it now when Dak Prescott's healthy. He's been a top 10 tight end in PPR scoring. Like in 2023, he was a top 10 tight end. Dak Prescott stay healthy. 2024, Dak Prescott did not stay healthy. All right, the wheels came off. 2025, Prescott's healthy, Ferguson's healthy, tight end four. I think that tight end 13 is a great value. I don't know if you have him in that same range, but I have him tight end 13, and I think that's a great value.
Yeah, I'm having some internet issues, so I'm unable to pull it up right now. But I think that's probably where he's going on most websites. I'll note that he's a player that I typically try to avoid because he doesn't offer a ton after the catch. He had a very low ADOT, 4.7 yards. That said, like because of how pass heavy this team was, it was a career high for him in targets and receptions. Just stat line, 82 catches, 600 yards, 8 touchdowns. The touchdowns are super notable, though. You mentioned something about him being a red zone weapon. Among all tight ends, second most red zone targets, third most end zone targets as well. So I really like him in Dallas stacks. But as far as like a start sit guy, I might be going elsewhere just because I want my guys to have a little juice to them, some yak. I just don't really see it with Ferguson.
Yeah, he had 23 red zone targets. That was top five in the NFL last year. He accounted for 23.5. Keep this in mind. Like this 23.5% of the target share inside the red zone. This is the mind-boggling thing. Like like they have so many weapons and he still has a big role. Like I'm talking about it, by the way, he had 23 red zone targets. Pickens had 21. Like they're right there. I think,
Yep.
and if you keep going down, CeeDee Lamb had 17 and he did play just 14 games. So like they're all very much involved. But then again, this was a team that was, top five in the NFL in red zone scoring attempts per game, right? And I don't see that changing in 2026. I really don't. I think they're going to be right around in that same range because they still have, so long as everyone's healthy. Um, anything
I'll,
else here in that? Oh, go ahead.
I'll just say with all that volume stuff you just mentioned there, he still finished tight end 10 on a per game basis. So like was that best case scenario? Like all that red zone work, all those touchdowns, he still finished tight end 10? That's kind of my hang up, and that's why I'm really only reserving my interest in him for Cowboys stacks.
Yeah, 8.9 PPR points, but that seems low, right? For tight end four on the season, like that seems relatively low.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did have some monster weeks, but he did towards the end of the season, weeks 15 through 18 were really bad for Ferguson. He scored fewer than 8 fantasy points in each of those last 4 games down the stretch. So like that is definitely noteworthy there. Didn't end the season on a high note. Um, Anything else here for Dallas that we haven't discussed?
No, I think we hit it all.
All right, let's move on to the New York Giants. And I'll tell you this, man, I'm pretty pumped for this team, dude. I am a big Jackson Dart fan. Obviously, we were all in on Malik Davis. That did not work out for me last year as I was hoping it did. Season-ending injury there. This is a team with a new identity, new head coach John Harbaugh, new offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, new defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, entirely new coaching staff here. When you look at, some additions in free agency that we look at the offense here, they added Darnell Mooney, they added Calvin Austin, they added some pieces on the offensive line, Lucas Patrick at center. They didn't get Isaiah Likely, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens. I thought that was an interesting addition. They added Patrick Ricard. I think that's very interesting because that's a fullback that wasn't in Baltimore. He would create some space there for our guy Derrick Henry. So I think that's we're not going to be drafting him, but I do think that's a notable signing. Lots of moving parts and lots of changes here in New York. I think most for the good here. I am excited to see how this all comes into fruition. I do think that this team is, still maybe a couple years away from, being a major threat. But I do think they're headed in the right direction, Tyler. What were your overall thoughts on the 2025 season? And then looking ahead here at 2026, do you like some of these additions?
I do, yeah. I think it's a good team in terms of like the infrastructure and what's built here. We got John Harbaugh coming in there. He'll put his fingerprints all over this offense and defense. But very just excited for the New York in terms of them going from 4-13, hopefully to being much more competitive here in 2026. One thing I'm super interested in is the elevation of Dart, who I mean, we got Matt Nagy coming over as their play caller. Served with the Chiefs the last few years, so we've got some Mahomes like upside there to hopefully put a hanger hat on. And just for Dart, just for reference on Jackson Dart, like he was so effective from like a fantasy rushing lens. 8.6 rushing fantasy points per game across his 12 starts. That's nuts. Like he averaged over 40 plus rushing yards per game. Most leagues, 40 rushing points equals 4 fantasy points. Most leagues, 4 points equals a passing touchdown. So you're basically getting one passing touchdown on there. He also scored 9 rushing touchdowns in 12 games. He was top five in fantasy points per dropback, one of the more predictive metrics in terms of future breakout candidates. I think quarterback 11, his current ADP, is his floor and should not be anywhere near where he's being drafted. I think he's got top six potential in my eyes. I think when I look back at my drafts when September rolls around, Dart may be my most owned quarterback this year because I think there's such a high floor ceiling combination that he's just so enticing to click on.
I mean, I'm proud to say he's my keeper in my two quarterback home league. He's one of my keepers. But yeah, I agree. I looked at, so you have him going what QB? What was that? QB
11.
11. Okay, I have, yeah. I mean, dude, he's going in what, 88 on DraftKings, like 88th overall on DraftKings. Like that's a good number. Like I have
Yeah.
it, and then on the underdog, he's 85th overall. Like that's a good. You're talking about seventh round, seventh, eighth round for a potential top five quarterback. Like these are the ones. These are the ones you gotta look for right here, Tyler. I agree with you, man. Like to me, he obviously a lot of that production came from the ground game, but I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's here to stay. He has those kind of wheels. He's someone that is going to take chances in the red zone, and he is going to to take it in the red zone. Like that's how they're going to operate. I don't see that happening. I don't see that changing all that much. I will say this though. The one thing I will say is we know that when John Harbaugh was in Baltimore, they really didn't utilize Lamar Jackson a ton as a runner in the red zone. I don't know if that's going to change here. If they're going to kind of uh, take it down a notch there in New York. I don't know. But I will say this:
Yeah.
Jackson Dart is still going to run. He still has wheels. I'm not concerned that they're going to go away completely. It's just maybe once they get inside the red zone, that is something to keep in mind here. But I'm with you. I'm investing in him. He's probably going to be one of my highest owned quarterbacks in best ball this year. Very easy to stack, I think, very straightforward. And I mean, I'm backing on Malik Neighbors. Are you backing on Malik Neighbors, man? Because like
Hell yeah.
I'm all the way in, dude. Like, yeah,
I
you
think
know
he's
what?
a superstar.
We're going right back to it. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm not one of those, managers that gets upset. It's like, oh, never again. No, you know what? You burned me last year. I don't care. We're going right back. You know what? I like you. I trust you. Malik Neighbors, where do you have him as far as your receivers? I know last year I had him number I think it was number three. I probably top five again on my board, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, he's currently wide receiver 7 in ADP on Underdog. Middle of round 2 is where you're getting him. I'm very comfortable with that click. Everything I've read so far has him on pace to be ready for training camp. So we've got him coming off injury. Scadaboo's coming off injury. Scadaboo's back in practice already, so that's good. Like he's already trending towards. There's no issues with him. But Neighbors we'll have to keep an eye on just for the summer reports. But everything I've read signifies he's ready to go. And then you look at like the competition for targets. I don't care about Darnell Mooney. I
Mm-mm.
don't.
Nope.
Theo Johnson, Isaiah Likely, don't care about those guys that much either. I think it's going to run through Neighbors. Neighbors is just such a superstar. I was just really saddened we only got to see, I think it was one full game with him and Dart together, and then the injury unfortunately happened. Um, I'm back in. I'm with you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I want to see it for an entire season, man, because I think it's gonna be fun to watch. You mentioned it, like Neighbors. First game of the season, 12 targets. Second game of the season, 13 targets. Third game of the season, 7 targets. And then that final game, the injury game, 3 targets. Like he was going to average at least 11 targets per game last year. Like, like that. And I think that that's going to be the trend again this year, right? Like so, like for me, I'm back in. I think that second round, that value is just great. I think that that's just reactionary to last year. I think if he would have been healthy, he would have been a top 7 pick in this year's draft. Like really do. That's just the kind of volume he gets there. So I think so long as he's ready and ready to go to start the season, I'm going to be treating him as a probably he's going to be probably a top five, top seven receiver on my board. Like probably that's where I'm going to have him in my auction draft book this offseason there. Um, as far as all the other receivers, you mentioned Darius Slayton, Darnell Mooney. Like these are just it for me, DF and not DFS, I'm sorry. With DFS too, in some random weeks or whatnot, depending on injuries or whatever, but mostly best ball. Like that's where I'm gonna have some of these guys because I do think you know what you're gonna get. Slayton's either gonna have a big game or nothing at all. Like that is who he is, and it happens maybe once or twice a year. Like that, it's a guessing game, right? So in best
Yes.
ball, it'll pay off maybe a couple times throughout the season. You don't have to worry about that. Um, Interested to see that you said that you are not interested in Likely or Theo Johnson because I do think that someone there, like I hated the fact that they added Likely because I was a little bit excited about Theo Johnson going into this season because I did think he had that opportunity to be that number two guy, right? Like when they traded or when Wanda Robinson went elsewhere, like I thought, okay, but then they got Likely. So now it's like, how is this gonna work out? Like, how is this? Because I don't think they're gonna completely like phase out Theo Johnson. I do think he's gonna have a role, but I think they're going to kind of eat into each other like it was in Baltimore with Mark Andrews and Likely. You're not going to be able to see any of their seedings, and that's a little bit frustrating for me. So, is that where you're looking? Is that how you're looking at it as well, or you just don't see enough, targets here for them?
Yeah, you sighed there during that comment, and I agree with you. It's just a sigh for me. Like, I feel like we're going to see both these guys work into each other's workloads. Likely Johnson, these are both guys that work off the formation. They're not your typical Y inline blocking tight ends. Likely last year had a 73% slot rate. Like, he's a slot receiver, basically. Keep in mind, Wan'Dale Robinson now out of the picture, vacates a good amount of targets. But I think this is an offense that could go toward more 12 personnel than 13 with just the current iteration of receivers they've got here. Um, Likely, he's just never been a difference maker in my eyes. We got that one week where everyone decided to go chase him on fab waivers, which was the clear misdirection. But besides that one game, it's just been very sporadic whenever Likely's been able to hit. And I think that's going to be here to stay. So in a start sit format, I envision him being very frustrating. Theo Johnson is also a ridiculously good athlete as well. He wasn't quite as slot heavy last year in the last year's iteration of the Giants offense, but he was still a 50% slot receiver. Like this guy's still also working outside of the formation. Um, and I think you said it best, where they're just going to cap each other's ceilings. So I'm just kind of lukewarm on it, not really interested in it. Maybe I'll do it in Giants stacks, but I'm gonna let others buy Likely. I think dynasty wise, this is a pristine time to sell Likely at an all-time high. I'll be honest.
And by the way, we told everyone not to go get Isaiah Likely that week. I remember that vividly. We were like, do
Yes.
not spend 50% of your budget on Likely. Do not do it. I remember that. And some people didn't listen. And just, But I agree. Look, I think this is a good time to sell likely. I'm going to be holding the bag on Theo Johnson in my dynasty league. Unfortunately, like there's just nothing I can do. Um, I love the prospect, loved everything about him. It just goes to show you, right? In football, opportunities like those are king. Like opportunities are kings. If you don't get opportunities, you just can't produce. So yeah, that's unfortunate there. I'm with you as far as receivers. I'm with you as tight end. It's not ideal there for the tight end position. Now the running back, Cam Scatterby, let me tell you something. He was so exciting to watch. Like it sucked that he got injured and his season ended the way it did. Um, Guy runs like a madman. Like he runs like an absolute maniac. And to me, I love every minute of it. Now, as a fantasy manager, how concerned are you about Scatterby being able to play 17 games this upcoming season? Because, I mean, with the way he throws himself at defenders, dude, I don't know. I'm not very optimistic that he can stay on the field for 17 games. I want to see it, but man, I am a bit pessimistic given his style of play, Tyler. Where are you at with Scatterby, man?
Love this dude. Among all backs with 100 plus carries, he was top five in both missed tackles forced and yards after contact. Like lowers the boom, ready to roll. What's great about him was the addition of Pat Ricard, the fullback, comes over from Baltimore to New York with Harbaugh and company. Last year, Derrick Henry averaged nearly a full yard on the rushing plays where Ricard was on the field. I'm just envisioning a lot of I formation stuff. Just feeding them, just letting them go to work. I'm very very excited about Scadaboo. I will say that the injury concerns are super high in terms of how I would draft. Where this guy's going RB 24, so like that's probably fourth fifth round, depending on your draft. I would if he's my second RB I'm taking in my draft, I would quickly grab a third running back as maybe you almost played those two based on matchups. Maybe every now and then they be in your flex spot. Depends on your build and everything you do, but that would be how I would mitigate the injury concerns. Devin Singletary to me, just a guy, not super interested in him as like a depth piece. So that's kind of where I am with that. Any thoughts on that angle of playing it with like double tapping running back almost essentially if you do take Scatabo at ADP?
I didn't think of it that way, but I think that's a great point. Like because you're minimizing your risk. Like that's what you're doing. Like you're minimizing your risk because I do think that a healthy Scottaboo can definitely give you RB2 production, and he's going to give you RB1 productions in some weeks as well. Like we saw it last year where he's capable of that because he is going to have a major presence in the red zone. And like the addition, that's why I said the addition of Ricard, that's so important.
It
I'm
is.
not concerned about Singletary. I'm not concerned about Tyron Tracy Jr. either. I actually think Tracy is a complementary back to Scadaboo. Like, so I do think that he's, going to be the guy that kind of the third downs or passing downs, things like that. He'll get involved, but not enough to take away from Scadaboo. So, he'll probably be that. Not I don't want to say clear handcuff because it's not because I do think Singletary and Tracy will kind of split the workload there if Scalaboo misses. But I do think that that change of pace guy is going to be Tyron Tracy there. So um I'm in on Scadaboo. I understand the risk I'm taking, and I think the idea that you presented is a very wise one. And I think it's something that I'm going to apply in my drafts because I do think you should protect your investments, right? So, you mentioned that he's an RB, he's going back end of the RB2 range. Probably what rounds 5, 6 you mentioned. So, I think I don't think it's taking on too much risk, but I do like the idea of kind of having an insurance plan there. Um, Anything else on this offense?
We kind of glossed over the depth receivers. I'll note that the contracts were interesting between Darnell Mooney and Calvin Austin, two guys that came in from Atlanta and Pittsburgh, respectively. Mooney doubled the contract of Austin. Small contracts, 1 year, $3 million for Mooney, 1 year, 1.5 for Austin. But just in case anyone's looking for the final 20th round selection to stack these Giants, it would be Mooney over Austin for me for that reason. Follow the money.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that neither are all that. I used to like Mooney, but that part of my life is over, Tyler. That part of my life is
That's
over.
fair. So,
I'm okay with him.
sub
I'm okay.
180
Like
pound.
I'm okay. I'm okay with it, but it's just not for. It's again. I rather invest in Slayton, right? Like I rather because I feel like you're going to kind of get a similar player. and we've seen it multiple times here with Slayton in this offense already. So, but I agree with you. Mooney over Austin. Neither stand out as priorities for me at all. Switching gears to the defensive side here, they added Sam Roberts, nose tackle there. They added Trayman Edmonds. That was a good one. The linebacker there. They added Greg Newsome, the cornerback. I thought that was a good addition there. So they've definitely beefed up the defense here. They also added Jason Pinnock, Elijah Campbell, two safeties there. And then Ardarius Washington, another corner that they added. So they've added a lot of pieces here on the defense. Tyler, how do you envision New York's defense now with new defense coordinator, a new kind of regime there? Do you see a lot of changes here for this unit?
It's going to be interesting to see how they transition this one. One thing that I would love to see, I mean, we've seen like these Giants teams, I'm sorry, not Giants, these Ravens teams of the past with Harbaugh and company excel whenever they've had that X factor at safety, like dating back to Ed Reed, to Eric Weddle, to nowadays Kyle Hamilton. You look at like Mike McDonald, his success over there in Seattle with Nicky Manwari and company, Julian Love. I'd love to see at number 5. I think Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, certainly in the conversation. It's a little early. They may go linebacker instead, probably getting like Sonny Styles. Like I think that's a very likely pick as well. But getting an X factor at safety, I think, really helps what this defense in terms of what Harbaugh and company. They got defensive coordinator Denard Wilson. He was with the Ravens 3 seasons ago. I spent 2 in Tennessee. Didn't really pan out because the Titans had so many injuries on that defensive back group. That's really kind of hard to pin that on Wilson specifically. So I think like him coming here kind of gives him a fresh start. I would just love to see them get a legitimate weapon there in terms of a guy that can move around and become a difference maker, a safety that bring down in the box. I like Tyler Nubin. He's been a guy that's picked up some good tackle numbers. Holland, a guy from Miami, they overpaid, I think, in my eyes to
Yeah,
acquire him.
they did.
Um, yeah. So I like to see them at a third safety that's like a wrecking ball, you know? Like I think
Yeah,
Downs is specifically that.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think safety. I think linebacker. They can use that. I
Yeah.
think wide receiver, dude. Like, do you see that they have the fifth pick, the
Yep.
Giants? Man, you don't think they go receiver there, huh?
It's possible. I mean, I've seen mock drafts where they do that. I've seen mock drafts where they go
Where they go
linebacker or
Tyson?
edge. Yeah, Tyson, Tate, those are probably the guys. Tyson's gotten a lot of late, not steam, well, the opposite of steam. He's been dragged down in the process, the draft process, where there's some question marks now where he's more looking at like a mid first round. But again, you never know how that's going to play out. I would say Tate would probably be the more likely candidate there. Um, Although we've seen this team like spend a lot of money on slot receivers, this organization in terms of the front office, maybe they do go after like a Mekhi Lemon, but 5 feels super rich for that.
Yeah,
I would think it's probably going to be focused on the defensive side.
yeah, I think so too. I think at the end of the day, look, they need both sides of football here, but I think defense is where their biggest needs are right now. And then when you look at availability in the draft too, like that, I think that's important, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that has to be taken into account here. Um, Anything else here with New York?
Um, the interior of the offensive line, I think they could get some work there. A successor's needed. Right guard, Van Rotten's 36 years old, logged a ton of snaps last year, over 1,100. Left guard, John Runyon. Like the little Nepo good kid had not the best year last year, 65th out of 79 in PFF's grades. I think that getting some interior help there would be wise for them. But yeah, I think linebacker is really good. I like that they added Edmonds from Chicago, but he's battled knee and groin injuries, pardon me, through the last few years. So I don't know if he's the long-term answer or not. That remains to be seen. But depth there would be certainly wise with Okereke. Uh, he's a free agent, if I'm not. Yeah, he's a free agent. So I don't think he'll be coming back.
Yeah, yeah, correct. All right, let's move on to your Philadelphia Eagles there, Tyler. And to no surprise, like obviously no major coaching changes aside from new offensive coordinator there, Sean Mannion. Um Outside of that, nothing major in the coaching world there. They did add Dontavian Wicks. Like I saw that the other day. Like, well, you excited about that?
No,
No.
I'm
I
I'm
saw you
nodding.
nodding.
I'm
I'm like,
nodding just to
oh,
acknowledge it.
yeah.
Uh, Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say they also added Hollywood Brown, wide receiver here. They added Elijah Moore.
Hell yeah.
I think that was fun. Like that one to me is more fun, a little bit more fun than some of these other ones. And then outside of that, they added some depth at the tight end position with Johnny Munt and then Stone Smart. Bringing in some of the Jets and the Jacksonville guy. They added Andy Dalton as well here to the quarterback depth here. Um, but I think to expect kind of a similar offense this year. Do you see many changes here offensively? And then takeaways from last year as well. Like I think that they fall short of expectations.
Oh, for sure. And that's a big reason why they moved on from offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. Sean Mannion now joins as the play caller. I would have liked to have seen them get a more established guy. It feels like we're really just kind of hitting the reset button, but it's just another year where Jalen Hurts is another offensive coordinator. I believe now it's every year dating back to like his final year at high school. He's had a different offensive coordinator or a different play caller. Just ridiculous span for him. Constant change is not going to lead to any kind of consistent growth. So. I just dislike the constant turnover. I just wish they got somebody that could be there for the long term. Maybe they've got that here with Mannion. I don't know. Um, what would I expect for this year's draft? Howie Roseman tends to look towards the future. He's really good at team building, really good at acquiring trades that you look back on. They're like the one dynasty player in your league that like makes the trade. And you're like, oh, I would have paid more for that, and you didn't realize they're even available for sale. Roseman, pardon me, just keeps making those sharp moves. But I could see them getting some like depth along the offensive line as like their biggest need. Lane Johnson's really getting up there in terms of age. Elite right tackle, but age, injuries, they're catching up to him. So the Rousman being forward thinking makes me think offensive tackle could be what they look at here at number 23. And then we've got all the AJ Brown things where it seems like every week there's a new report stating that they might move him. Um, it's just a wild setup right now where we kind of have to wait for it if anyone's not really following it closely. Brown's cap hit drops from $43 million. That's ridiculous. Down to $16.4 million after June 1st. So that's why there's so many conversations about it because it would not happen until after June. And that's tough. I mean, from like a team building angle, you've got free agency, you've got the NFL draft. These are huge landmarks of the NFL offseason, both occurring before June 1st, obviously. Um, and then you also have Roseman has a good quote from late February where AJ is a great player. When we talked to the new offensive coordinator Mannion about his system, his vision is AJ is going to be a huge part of that. We got to get better, and you don't get better by just sacrificing great players. So I don't know what that means. The additions of guys like Wicks, Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, they're depth pieces. It just makes it a non-necessity should they move on from A.J. Brown. I just don't know if they do it or not. I was very adamant against this whole move, but the sending a 5 and a 7 and then giving Wicks, I think it was $12.5 million. That's a good amount of money.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like some of the deals that we saw last year, a lot of 1 year, $10 million flyers. Um, yeah, but this one's just a little bit more elevated in terms of price. So that's not insignificant. But again, Wicks is super young, more of like a project player. I'd rather see him develop behind the scenes, but rather than just being thrust into a 120 target role here in right from the get-go. Uh, do you have any thoughts on the AJ Brown trade?
Man, this has been like circulating since last year. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like we've been hearing about this since last year, and it hasn't panned out. It hasn't come into fruition. I don't take anything off the table. I'll be honest. I don't take anything off the table, and I think that there's going to be players moved the day of the draft that we probably were not expecting, or there was some expectations, and then they finally got moved the day of draft. There's a lot of trades on draft day, right? Like there's a lot of moving pieces on draft day. You mentioned June 1st and the difference of cap hit. That's important too, right? Like you have to take that into account. Um, I think this is probably one of the most difficult situations to read today. Like we're recording this, it's April 13th, right? Like that's when we're recording this. Like because I think a lot can change between now and the start of the season. Like that's the honest truth. Like if AJ Brown is not there, now you have a ton of vacated opportunities. Like a ton. And then who's going to step up? Is it going to be Brown? Is it going to be Wicks? Is Moore going to get involved? More involved. We know obviously know Devontae Smith. They have Dallas Goedert. Like kind of have to see how this plays out, really. Um, to answer your question, I don't think they trade away AJ Brown. I do think he's a Philadelphia Eagle in 2026. I do expect him to be there. Um, if they want to compete at that high level, right? That I think they're capable of, and I think they are built to still. I mean, it was just a couple years ago that they won a Super Bowl. Um, I think he has to be a part of that. I really don't think that they can accomplish that without AJ Brown. Like I don't unless they replace him, and that player is not on this roster right now. Like that is the truth. Like um, so no, I think he stays. I think he'll be here. Does that mean I want to invest in him in fantasy? Maybe, maybe not. But I've always been a Brown guy. Like I'll tell you that. Like I've always invested in him. I understand what comes with the territory sometimes. I understand it's not going to be great. And that last season when he got off to a slow start, I know the production wasn't there, but the opportunities were, right? Like that was not the issue. It was just efficiency and production. That's what the issue was. He turned things around, obviously. But yeah, man, I, I'm I'm in on him this year, and I think he stays here in Philadelphia. And I hope that's the case. If he goes elsewhere, I that might change my perspective on where I am with him. But as long as he's with Philadelphia, I'll be investing in Agent Brown, man. That's where I'm at with him, honestly. To answer your question. So yeah, I think he's here. Um, where you at with Devontae Smith? So okay, when you look at the numbers last year for these two guys, so AJ Brown 30% target share, okay, 8.1 targets per game. Devontae Smith 25% target share, 6.7 targets per game. Dallas Goedert 20% target share, 5.4 targets per game, and then Barkley, only other player with over 3 targets per game, 3.1 targets per game there for Philadelphia. Very concentrated here with this group. I don't see that changing all that much in 2026, Tyler. Do you?
I don't know. It was super concentrated in terms of where the targets were going. Brown and Smith, and then Dallas Goedert essentially by the red zone. That's kind of how it kind of functioned. Um, Devonta Smith's an interesting one because we kind of have to talk about him with and without AJ Brown. Like, should they move on from him or should they keep him? Um, just keep in mind, like his numbers aren't super high because of this whole Jalen Hurts era. The Eagles just have not been particularly pass heavy over these past like 4 or 5 years now with Hurts under center. And despite that hurdle, Devonta Smith still ranks wide receiver 24 in NFL history in most receptions through a player's first 5 years. He's cleared 900 yards in 4 of 5. The only year he missed was because he played 13 games. So if you exclude his rookie season, fantasy wise, he's finished wide receiver 30, 17, 21, and 14 in fantasy points per game. So like, what are we looking at here? Mid-range wide receiver two. I think that's fine. I'm fine buying him at cost. 6 foot receiver, 170 pounds. Like that's unconventional to lead your receiving group through. But that's kind of how the modern NFL shifted. Like Garrett Wilson, Lad McConkey, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, all these guys are 185 or less and led their teams and still found their way to 1,000 yard campaigns. Um, then you look at the guys behind them. There's like nobody of note that's really going to like command targets and try to force this into a more spread out offense. Maybe Wicks eventually gets there. He's just kind of been like a small sample efficiency stud. Like a lot of dynasty players have gravitated toward him. A lot of players have gravitated toward him in DFS. 2024, when there were injuries piling up, Wicks was very boom or bust, but the boom weeks were super, super high end. Great speed, good release package. I think there's a lot to like with Wicks as a project. The problem is he has no hands. He has a career 11% drop rate. So he left so many plays on the field in 2024 where that's why I keep referring to him as like a project player because I still think he's very incomplete as a receiver. Um, Marquise Brown consistently hurt. Elijah Moore, one of my favorite prospects coming out in the last like 5 years, has done absolutely nothing aside from like a little span there. I think it was the Flacco led Jets where he did
Yeah.
something for a spell there, but oh man, more of just a fun guy that's just kind of burning a hole in my dynasty squads, if I'm being honest. But I'll always have a soft spot for more. But this group, I think it really just will oscillate quite a bit with and without AJ Brown. Like, should Brown leave? I mean, Smith's targets probably jump up to the 140 plus range, and he goes from just like a back end wide receiver two to maybe a back end wide receiver one, front end wide receiver two. Best case scenario. I don't envision the loss of Brown, AJ Brown leading toward more passing by default, but Smith by default would get an extra boost in opportunities. Um, and then Goddard, I mean, career high 60 catches, 11 touchdowns. but career low in yak per reception. I mentioned this with the Jake Ferguson comment about how I'm just kind of out on the guys that are not good producers after the catch. So I'm really single focused on these guys as stacks in best ball, really fading them in start sit formats. And that's kind of where I am with this passing group as a whole.
He was very volatile on a week-to-week basis. Dallas Carter, that is. These kind of tight ends, and you kind of hit it there, right? Where they're over the course of the season, they're going to get there, but I think they're going to be very, up and down, and that's why in best ball it just makes so much sense, right? Because you don't have to worry about that inconsistent weekly floor. And that's what I see with Dallas Goedert here. I do think obviously if AJ Brown goes elsewhere, then you could see a little uptick, I think, in opportunities. But like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean to huge plays and big plays or anything like that. I'm with you on Devontae Smith, by the way. He's someone that I've been a fan of since he's entered the NFL. I think he's been undervalued, still is to this day, in my opinion. In the fantasy world, I do think he's undervalued. Very, very consistent on a per game basis. It's just been, I mean, even with AJ Brown, like he's producing at scale. Yes, there's going to be those off weeks, and we've seen it. And then he gets the squeaky wheel narrative, and then everyone's like chasing that. Look, over the course of the season, I think Devontae Smith is going to be a top 30 receiver pretty much every season, like whenever he's healthy. As things stand right now in Philadelphia. So with you, I'm investing in him as where he's going. If I miss out on Brown, I'm happily investing in Smith. I usually am taking him as my wide receiver 3 anyways, maybe wide receiver 4 at times based on how I draft. So like for me, like that's fine. Um, so yeah, I'm in on them. I'm in on I was out on Barkley last year, dude, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go back this year. Like I'm kind of I don't know. Where are you at with Barkley? Because I'm very indifferent. Like he unsurprisingly had a down season, like based on expectation of where he was being drafted. Like there, to me, that's not surprising because of how much usage he had the year before when they won the Super Bowl. Like it was an insane number. I don't have the exact number, but it was unheard of, right? And we we forget that beyond the regular season, like he played a shitload more football, including in the Super Bowl, where they really leaned on Saquon Barkley a lot in the postseason. So um, I wasn't surprised that he, fell short of expectations last year. However, I usually like to look at these players like, do we go back this year? And that's the right now the struggle bus I'm in. Do I go back this year? I'm digging in and I'm unsure, but I'll tell you this, he's not completely off the board like he was for me last year at where he was going. Where are you at with Saquon Barkley, man? Because needless to say, it was not a great season given what expectations were.
Well, yeah, the 2024 season was insane. A 2,000-yard campaign, 482 touches total when we include the postseason, 500 total touches. That's nuts. So yeah, no shock at all to see him fall back in 2025 across the board. Basically, every advanced metric you're looking at, it kind of dropped. Um, his fantasy scoring went from 22.2 down to 14.5 points per game. I've been writing a target and fade column for us here at Fantasy Guru for years. Earmark Barkley as a hard fade. Uh, this year, I mean, we got a new play caller in Mannion. Um, we've got an offensive line that struggled with injuries last year, perhaps to get a little bit better in terms of health there. After holding a really hard stance on fading last year, I think sure there are some reasons to be bearish. I mean, we've got Hurts under center. We've got the threat of him stealing rushing touchdowns. We've got an offensive line that's getting a little bit older, but I don't really hate the click this year. Um, but I'm doing it from like the most conservative, weakest way to play this, where I just want to meet the field in best ball. I want to have like an 8.3% exposure rate in best ball. In start sit formats, I will probably be going elsewhere, I'll be honest. But it's the weakest position to hold on a player, but it's kind of just how I feel about Barkley, where I feel like I'm willing to roll the dice every now and then on him, but he's not going to be a priority click.
Yeah, kind of I want to say I'm on the same boat, right? Because like I don't last year I was fading him. Like last year I did not click the button. I was under the field, under that 8.8%. I was under that. Um, but this year I don't know. I think that being with the field is a good idea, right? And I think he's going in that second round range. Like I think that's a fair value for him, like considering what he can do. I have him going RB8 on my end. Like I'm seeing him going between that RB8, RB10 range. Um, I think that's fair. Like I do think that's fair. So I probably going to be on the same boat there.
So,
Um,
question for you: the way Underdog's ADP is set up, um, pick from 11 through 17. It's almost one, two, three, four, five, seven running backs in a row. It's just straight running backs. So that's why I'm kind of like I'm okay meeting him at cost because I'll be varying the backs I pick within that tier itself. Um, any thoughts on that of him versus a lot of those guys? What kind of thoughts do you have on that?
so I'm looking at I'm pretty so just to check, make sure we're both checking off the same boxes, right? So I have Barkley, and then right after Barkley, I have Hampton, Walker, Henry, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, and we'll stop at Brees Hall and Kyrie Williams. We'll stop there. That's all the way down to RB 16. We
Right?
can even go to
Underdog's a little
Javante with,
different.
huh? Okay.
Underdog's a little
All right,
different.
you want okay, all right, so let me know what you have. Because I think
James
okay, go ahead.
James Cook, Genty, Achan, Barkley, Walker, Hampton, and then Jeremiah Love, all grouped together in a block of seven running backs in a row.
I'm probably gonna diversify between
Yeah.
all of them. Like I don't think I'm gonna be overly bullish on maybe so you said Hampton's in there?
Yes.
Like so he's the one I might be the most aggressive on in that range. Um but I do see myself like kind of just to diversify, right? Like investing
Right.
each of these back. Like maybe have and I'll say this, Barkley would probably be the lowest one at 8.8% on the nose. Like
Hmm.
I'm going to be a little bit more bullish on, on Hampton. I think Cook is a great buy there as well. I think Genty's a great buy as well. Like so I look at all these players, I'm like great buys, but I will have just for again diversifying myself is I will have Barkley there. Like that's it. Like not
Yeah.
because I feel like but I'm just not fading him like I was last year. Like last year, I faded him. I faded McCaffrey. I went 1 for 1 with that, right? Like I failed miserably with one. I hit on the other one. That's how it worked out. Um, this year, I don't want to be at zero or not zero, but like even 1 or 2% or whatever the case may be. Um, that's a really good group, by the way. Like that's
It's all,
another reason. Like you
yeah.
could wait, right? Round two is like fuck it. That's
You're,
another reason why you could go running back, by the way, too.
I was just gonna say that. You're also
Oh,
picking at the turn there where you got two of those guys likely going off the board.
yeah. James Cook in that range is so good. Like so good. Like, man, that's a fun range. I can't wait to start drafting, being honest. Um, anything else on the offense here before we move on to the defense?
We didn't talk too much Jalen Hurts, did we?
No, no. He's coming off the board as usual as a what top? Oh no, actually, I have QB6 right now. Where do you have him?
Same.
Yeah. Where you at with that? Are you in?
Uh, I kind of want to be just because of how bad it was with Patullo last year. I think the more average finish for Hurts is probably closer to top five rather than back end six. Like his passing attempts last year jumped up from the Saquon heavy year 24.1 up to 28.4, but it was just really poor play calling. It was all like curls and goes. There was no like smart route patterns at all. Um, Hurts posted his second worst accuracy mark since becoming a starter, his lowest mark in yards per attempt, barely cleared 200 passing yards per game. Like it doesn't really move the needle. And then the rushing production also was pretty rough. Fewest rushing yards per game and rushing touchdowns since he was named a starter. His scramble rate dropped from 8.9 to 7.6. His design rushes went from 7.4 attempts per game down to 4.1. So just across the board, I feel like there's reasons to think we may see some regression for Hurts in the positive direction with a new play caller, with the offensive line being a little bit more healthy, and just after seeing how poor it went the year prior. So I'm in on him at ADP, but not a priority click for me either.
Yeah, I look at some of the quarterbacks that are being drafted in that range, and I probably am going to be. I'll probably be under the field in best ball on Hertz, or maybe right there with the field at 8.8%. He's never been someone I go out of my way to draft. Normally because he's going so early, but he's not going as early this year. He's
Yeah.
kind of going in that Drake May, Joe Burrow's range. And I see Jayden Daniels kind of going in that same range in some drafts. Um, Drake May is the one that stands out the most from that bunch, him and Joe Burrow. I kind of would lean going that direction if I'm taking the quarterback in that range. But man, then you have Jackson Dart, Dak Prescott so much later. It's like, we could hang around and wait around. Um, I will have look, I'm not fading, I'm not going out of my way to fade Jalen Hurts. But I am not going to be. I'm not overly aggressive with targeting him this season. But that's just been my way of drafting, for a long time. I do think his price is far more reasonable this year than it has been in previous seasons because of you are getting a discount. So I think if you've been in the Jalen Hurts business, this is the perfect time to get in on him because it's probably going to go back if things like do kind of reshuffle to the way that they have been in previous seasons. His price is probably going to kind of adjust in the following year because of that. So I do think you're getting a slight discount this year.
Yeah,
Um,
like last year, what, round four? Is that when we were getting most of these mobile
yeah,
QBs?
yeah, it was like round three,
Yeah.
four, rounds 3 to 5. Like they were all kind of going like sometimes like back end of 4, front end of 5. Like it just really depended on the draft and how things were going. But yes, like it was between rounds 3 and 4 where you had to take. It was him, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, I believe, and then was Jayden Dan. I don't
Jin-
know if Jayden Daniels was going in that range. He was, right? Yeah, it was
Yep.
all four of them. Yeah. So there you go. You're getting a discount on him this year without question. Anything else offensively here?
No, we hit that pretty good.
Yeah, look, behind Barkley, we have Bigsby, Will Shipley, Damian Pierce, Carson Steele. I would watch training camp very closely because I think it's a lot of moving pieces. I don't think anyone's solidified in their role behind Barkley, in my opinion. I think this is going to definitely be a battle here, at which anyone could win that battle, I think. Um, Defense, Tyler. Uh, Look, I think they have a good defense, but I do think that some pieces are getting old, right? And I do think that it would be ideal to get some more depth at the defense position here. But outside of that, I think this is a really good unit. Where are you at with them with the defense? Obviously, Vic Fangio he's great. But where are you at with this defense?
I do question the pass rush. Like they've lost some good rushers over the last few years. Most recently, Jalen Phillips just went to Carolina this offseason. Prior to that, they lost Josh Sweat to Arizona, Hassan Reddick to Tampa Bay, Brandon Graham. They were so desperate for pass rush last year. Graham came out of retirement to return and play again. I don't envision that happening again this offseason. They've got Nolan Smith, a previous round one selection. Um, but we really haven't seen much from him. I think he has 10 career sacks, pardon me, entering the final year of his rookie contract. So he's kind of been like stonewalled from playing time due to the guys ahead of him. But the fact they had to lure 38-year-old Brandon Graham away from retirement kind of tells you a lot about Nolan Smith's development and where they view him right now. So I kind of think edge is a huge need for this squad in terms of getting a consistent pass rusher. The Eagles have almost always had huge depth along the defensive line, both at tackle and edge. So this is a kind of a rarity for the Eagles entering an NFL draft where they don't have that. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them spend one of these picks. They've got one, two, three, four, five, 9 picks in the draft this year. Spending two of them at edge wouldn't shock me that much. Uh, Other spots of need, they lost Reed Blankenship to the Texans. I think getting his replacement would be wise. They spent a round two pick on Andrew Makuba last year from Texas. He logged a bunch of free safety snaps for them, but finding cerebral safeties that are really good in coverage and know what they're looking at in Fangio's scheme, I think would be really wise for them. So those are like the two big defensive needs I have for the squad, edge and safety. I liked them getting Reek Woolen. I thought that was a cheap grab
Yes.
for them. They got Jonathan Jones also as a depth piece. They're pretty set at cornerback, but those are the two spots I'm looking at, edge and safety.
Yeah, edge safety, and offensive line is what I have as far as team needs are concerned. Like, I think that, and then it depends on Brown, right? Like, if Brown is gone, and wide receivers can be a
Yeah.
position a position of need, right? So, but right now I agree with you. I have edge, offensive line, safety help, and I just think adding depth, like you mentioned, like they don't have that depth that they've had in years past defensively in this, but primarily at the edge, the linebacker, and defensive line position. I think adding pieces, I would not be stunned if they use out of those 9 picks, if they use half of them on defense. This, like, I really wouldn't be shocked. Now, I'm not saying all edge, but at least half of those picks addressing the defense there. Um, Anything else here before we jump into the final team of this division?
I'll add tight end as an interesting position of note. They've been kind of throwing some darts at some cheap guys in the last few off seasons, but Goddard, 31, he returned on a 1 year deal. Like I said, career low in yak per reception. I kind of feel like the end's kind of getting close for Goddard. You know, they drafted number 23 overall. They've been mocked a few times to get Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon, the super athletic tight end. I wouldn't hate that. I feel like he lacks a ton in the blocking department, which is what Goddard, Selleck, a lot of these guys of Eagles pass have been really good at, almost essentially operating as a sixth offensive lineman at times. So that's one huge change. So I'm not fully on board with Roseman making that style of pick, but it will be a lot of fun for fantasy, I gotta admit.
Yeah, I mean, I look another weapon to this offense would just make it that much better. Is there any tight end of note that you would feel like would be a good fit?
Yeah, I mean Sadiq would be the most interesting for fantasy, but no, you probably need one of the more well-rounded guys. Those are not round one selections, though. Sadiq's the only one drawing round one buzz.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Washington. I guess I would say a team that disappointed the most in this division last year. Look, they went through a lot of injuries there last season. I think they got hit by the injury bug pretty hard there. So we'll give that some that'll be some of the reason why this team did not hit expectation. I also think that they exceeded expectations the previous year, right? So when you look at coaching changes here. They have Durante Jones is going to be their defense coordinator. He was a former Vikings DB coach there. They promoted David Blow here for the offense coordinator. And then you look at some of the free agent moves that they made. They brought in Van Jefferson. They brought in Diami Brown. They brought Chig Okonkwo there. They did need a tight end, so they brought Okonkwo there. They added depth to the guard position, but no major signing of note. And then I think the most notable position here is the running back position that they added Rashad White. They brought in Jerome Ford. And Debo Samuel's no longer with the team. That is also noteworthy there. But obviously, I think a lot of new faces in this offense here. And I still think you look at this team and you look at this offense, Tyler, I still think wide receiver is definitely a position of need here. Someone to help Terry McLaurin there. But your overall takeaways, Jayden Daniels struggled. They dealt with injuries. Um, obviously could not follow up that beautiful rookie season he had the year before. But where you at with this Washington offense, like, their 2025 season, your takeaways from there, and then looking ahead, like, do you feel a bounce back in 2026?
Yeah, I think I do feel like a bounce back's under in the it's gonna happen. Sorry, can't find my words right there.
That happens
David
to me all the
Blau.
time.
Yeah, there's a there's a Michael Scott quote from The Office where he's like, sometimes I'll start a sentence and not even know where I'm gonna finish it, and I feel
Correct.
like that's very relatable. Um, David Blau, their offensive coordinator, I like him as far as a guy that changed things up a bit through Daniel's first two seasons. I think we're gonna see a shift towards more snaps under center where the first two seasons we didn't see that a ton, but he did have a higher passer rating and a higher adjusted yards per attempt when under center versus shotgun. So maybe we get some elevated EPA boosting plays out of that. Blau is also a firm believer in running back by committee. I think that's why we're seeing so many um, jabronis. Like these are Jags. These are just guys in my eyes at the running back position that they've acquired to date. Number 7 draft pick. So keep in mind Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame's star running back, very in play for them. Daniel Jeremiah has him in his latest mock there, I believe. Um, but Commanders have just 2 picks inside the top 140. They really need to make those draft picks count. So I don't know if you're going to burn a running back. I would do that. I think that would be really wise for them. Namely because Jayden Daniels had such a rough year. Helping him in every facet that you can would be very wise. He played in just 7 games last year. Terry McLaurin joined him for 3 of 7. So like we really didn't get to see those two play together. His accuracy dropped tremendously after this Offensive Rookie of the Year campaign, 69% down to 60.6%. His yards per attempt dropped. His fantasy production dropped by almost 5 full points. EPA per play, he went from quarterback 6 to quarterback 27 from 2024 to 2025. Just drops across the board. So what went wrong? Did defenses solve him? Like that's the big question. I think we should start with the injury front, where he suffered a dislocated elbow and he had a hamstring injury, limited his playing time. his 7 games that he played, like they weren't just like weeks 1 through 7. They were scattered throughout the year, in and out of the lineup. He was laboring through injuries and trying to play. So a lot of his production and metrics are, I think, with an asterisk in terms of him not playing at full capacity. And then we have shifts in coverage against him. Like defenses started to play a lot more man coverage against the Commanders while trying to contain him in the rush. Against man coverage looks in 2025. Jayden Daniels sported a 44.6% completion rate, 6.4 yards per attempt, 6.2% sack rate, a 30% off target throw rate.
Jeez.
His scramble rate against man coverage dropped from 11.9 in 2024 down to 7.6. So his passing production fell, his rushing production fell, and teams were actively playing more man against them, knowing that they could limit him both in the pocket and passing across the field. So like limiting his mobility, I think it was just huge in terms of him taking a step backwards. It also limited drives being extended and continued. The receivers didn't help. 10.9% of Daniel's drops of his passes last year were all drops. That was a league high mark among quarterbacks. The supporting cast just really didn't help him in that regard. Like Terry McLaurin doing that holdout at what age 29 or 30 just kind of led to the hamstring injury and just kind of that was recurring for him. Debo Samuel, I mean, we kind of saw the writing on the wall in San Francisco. The yak per reception marks were consistently declining. The yards per route run consistently declining for him. Where when he joined Washington, I wasn't that surprised that he just kind of, I think he met expectations at ADP. He wasn't a league winner or anything, but he was just kind of a fine wide receiver four. Uh, but like those two guys were your star guys. And then like 40-year-old Zach Ertz. Like there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone there. The offensive line had some reshuffling as well. I think Daniels played in 7 games. He had 3 or 4 different iterations of offensive line combinations. So that was also another thing. I'm making a lot of excuses for him because this dude, offensive rookie of the year, was elite. He was fantastic to watch. What happens now? Like, is there like a return to somewhere in the middle? And that's where I think the new play caller, David Blau, is going to have to like really get him going. Trying to maximize Jayden Daniels is what this offense should be all about in 2026, which is why I think they need to spend that number 7 pick, lessening the burden on him. Give him a running back that he can lean on. Austin Eckler injured very early last year. The run game just kind of fell apart. Like we kind of liked Bill Jacory Krosky Merritt, pardon me, for the memes almost. Like there was preseason steam and fun with all that, but the rushing attack was just not effective week to week. So I think getting a run game will really help Daniels in terms of just alleviating some of that pressure and some of that responsibility on him having to play hero ball week in and week out.
So you're saying 47.4 rushing yards per game is not good for Bill? No, look, listen, like you mentioned, dude, I agree with you. They need to get another playmaker here on this. I'm surprised they didn't use free agency a little bit more wisely here, if we're being honest. Like, I
Yeah.
think a good wide receiver would have been fun to add here. There was several notable names out there that you could have at least added, to help and alleviate some of the pressure here on Daniels. Neither of these running backs, of my like Rashad White, like he's more of a compliment running back to another running back. And Jerome Ford, we kind of saw how that played out in Cleveland. Like these are not game-changing running backs, right? Like these are not guys that are going to come and impact the offense significantly in a positive way. And I just look at what they've done. Like Okonkwo, like what are your expectations? We'll talk about that, but like okay, sure, but I'm still not. I don't think that any of these moves have made a significant impact on the young quarterback, and I think that they need to address that. Like I truly do. You mentioned it; they don't really have that much draft capital here, and especially with the early draft picks, they don't have much draft capital. They need to make both of them count. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of these come for the offense. Like this is how much I think this offense is in need. Couldn't agree more with you, man. Like I think that that's a major, major need for this offense. I think that that's should be a priority because we kind of saw it with New England, right? Where they build around Drake May, they continue to build around Drake May. They brought in a really good running back in Henderson. They brought in Diggs, and they're still building and they're still adding and they're still, and I guess that the Washington tried, right? Debo Samuel, most baby that, but it just the signs were there. You mentioned the signs were there. His last year, in San Francisco was not the greatest. Like, kind of was on the decline, and we saw it there last year firsthand. So, Definitely think they need to continue to build around Daniels. I think we're going to see a bounce back season for Daniels. I truly do. I think the consensus thinks that too, because when you look at his ADP, like he's still a top four quarterback, top five quarterback based on ADP. And I think the consensus understands that. The most notable thing you mentioned it, the man, like last year, I think it was only 3 games of upwards of 40 rushing yards. In his rookie campaign, all but 6 games, he rushed for over 40 yards. Like that was a big difference in his game.
Yeah.
That was a big change, a notable change in his game. Obviously, the accuracy, the pressure, the fact that defenses, were containing him. I think there's going to have to be adjustments, right? And that's part of growing as a quarterback. Let's not forget, he's entering his third season in the NFL. Like he's still a young quarterback, and he's learning the game. How many offensive coordinators has he had now? Is this his third one?
No, he's had what's
Two,
the guy? Uh,
right? Yeah, he has
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury. He had
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury for the
Yeah.
first 2 years. Then now he has David Blau. So yeah, okay, so he's at 2. So, but still, look, I don't want to sit here and make excuses either, right? But I do think that Daniels is going to bounce back. I'm not worried at all. With that said, I do think that they need to help him. Like he's not going to be able to do this on his own. So I'm very interested to see what they do in the draft. When you look at this receiving group, Tyler, you got Terry McLaurin, Traylon Burks, Luke McCaffrey, Van Jefferson that they added, Diami Brown, we've talked about. They have Jalen Lane. I mean, it's really underwhelming here. And I'm a Burks guy. I like Traylon Burks. He's just not the guy that I thought he was going to be. Talk to me about this group. Like aside from Terry McLaurin, if you're even investing in Terry McLaurin, is there anyone you're looking at here from a fantasy lens or even from an NFL saying, okay, there's some potential here? Because I don't.
No. I mean, we kind of know what we got with the running backs. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time there. Receivers like Terry McLaurin's just on the wrong age of 30. I mean, kudos to him and his agent. He got the final contract that he was kind of seeking, but at what cost? Like he held out for so long, it really just kind of struggled with him, led to struggles in the 2027 season, 2025 season, pardon me. Um, Last year, 3 receptions or fewer in 6 of 10 games. Now dealing with a new offensive coordinator. This team was loaded with a lot of vets not too long ago, like when they finally got like the ownership change. And now I think we're going to see a swap there in terms of new guys coming in. Yeah, they brought in Van Jefferson, Diami Brown, not needle movers. I think we're still kind of waiting to see who the wide receiver two is. Like this is a laughably weak wide receiver group, and it's embarrassing. This team still has $50 million. That's the second most in the NFL. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna go get Diggs? Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Like right now, it's just laughable though.
Yeah, they definitely need to go get help. Like ASAP. Like go figure it out. But do it. Do it, please. I'm with you, man. I don't see myself investing in anyone here outside of McLaurin, and that's gonna be probably primary in Washington stacks. I have him going wide receiver 26 right now, and then the ADP I'm looking at. That's your wide receiver 3. Kind of exactly right. The shoulder shrug, like, all right. I agree with you about the running back. I'm not investing in this backfield at all. At least as things stand today, April 13th, 2026, will not be invested in the Washington backfield. Like I'm not a Rashad White guy. Ford, Bill Crosby, man, no, 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 no. I'm out. Not even if McNichols is still here, I think, right? I'm out. I'm out. Okonkwo, in or out?
You know, he's got 8 career touchdowns. Like,
I know. I don't understand the love for him though, because I feel like every year there's love for him.
yeah, he's always been like the 3,400 DraftKings DFS punt guy in
That's
my
it.
eyes. Not the
Yes.
that's it. Yeah, like, uh, yeah, like we don't even know if like Zach Ertz he could get that late call like in August. Like, yeah, I'm back. Let's do this. He's recovering from injury as well, so we don't. I believe he's a free agent right now. Um, Yeah, I'm just throwing my hands up. They just need another weapon. It could be running back, wide receiver, or tight end. I remember writing this down for, I think it was the Bears, like a few years back, when they had, I mean, it was even last year at number 10 when they picked Loveland. I just said, get an offensive weapon. Just get more pieces for Ben Johnson to utilize and find success. The same thing needs to happen for Washington. Get some new weapons for your young quarterback. Put them in a position to succeed. This is abysmal right now.
Yeah. I cannot agree more. Like this looks like a really bad. The fact that this offense was rolling 2 years ago is insane to me. Like you look
Yeah.
at this, you're like, what the hell is this? obviously there's been some moving pieces and parts since then, but needless to say, this is an offense with a lot of holes. And I think that they need to, continue to build there. As far as offensive line, obviously they have Tunsil. That was huge for them last year. Always having someone like Tunsil is big in the offensive line. I'm always going to say this, this is again a position where I think you can always beef up, especially when you have a young quarterback. You want to continue to build it. I do think it's a solid unit, but I definitely think there's room for growth. Outside of that, let's look at defense here, Tyler. They've had a lot of additions in free agency here defensively. Where do you see this unit in 2026 from a defensive standpoint?
They spent a lot of money at the edge positions, bringing in
Yes.
Odafe Owe. He was a guy who was traded from the Ravens to the Chargers. Did really well with LAC to close out last year over the back half. I'm floored that they let him walk. I guess they just didn't have the money to pay for him. They brought in him, Clavon Chason, who's kind of just a guy. Leo Chanel, kind of just a guy. I like the Nick Cross addition at safety. Amik Robertson, a depth piece. I think that was interesting. I still think linebacker's probably their big need because they let Bobby Wagner go. He's at the tail end of his career. Jake Martin's maybe another free agent they let go. I think linebacker is something that they should focus on. Safety across from Nick Cross would be another position I'd list there, but those are really the two. This team, again, I still think offensive weapon is number one. Interior of the offensive line, number two in my eyes. Like I don't know why they let Tyler Buecher go at center. I thought that was a really interesting move that just kind of weakens the offensive line.
Yeah.
Interesting in a bad way. And then linebacker and safety. I think that's really what I'm looking at. How about you? What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I have defensive back. I think that's obviously a need. I have wide receiver as a priority. Like I really do have wide
Yeah,
receiver as a priority. And then you could just put an entire like offense. Like we just talked about that, right? Like I feel like the
right.
entire offense could use an upgrade there. Um, and then I have defensive line. Defensive line is another position of need here for me. Um, again, a team that has a lot of holes, right? There's a good foundation with Daniels. Obviously Terry McLaurin's getting now towards that age. He's still though a very very good in my opinion wide receiver in the NFL. He's still a very good receiver, but I definitely think that this is a team that needs a lot of upgrading. So I'm very, very interested. It sucks because there's not a lot of draft capital, right? So like this is not going to be a 1 year to the next. Like definitely think they're going to bounce back this year, but I don't know if they're going to be that team that they were in 2024, where you're looking at deep in the postseason, and you're like, all right, there they are. I just don't see that. Not in this division. Um, I do think that they're a couple years away here from being that to getting to that point again. If they reach that point, I do think it'll be a couple years here. So again, a lot of needs here for Washington. Anything else here?
I think we did pretty well here covering this. Yeah, I would just love to see them get some weapons. Like let's get Jayden Daniels in a position to succeed. That's the big need.
Is there a way they don't have assets to be able to acquire a ton of draft picks anyways? Like they're gonna have to give future draft picks, right? And I wouldn't give any 2027 draft picks away for a 2026 draft pick. I'm just not doing that. Next year's draft is gonna be insanely loaded.
Yeah, nothing that I can think of.
No, man.
Again, they've got a lot of money. Like them sitting out so much in free agency was the biggest head
That's
scratcher.
yes, yes, man. Like that's what I mean. Like that's why I said at the beginning of this when we were talking about like they should have been so much more aggressive in free agency, man. Like, there were some pretty decent pieces out there, both offensively and defensively, that I think would have made a huge significant. I mean, Alec Pierce was one of those guys. Like, man, yeah, man. It's it's just not good, not good, not good here, Tyler. All right, well, we wrapped it up much shorter than last week's segment, ladies and gentlemen. So for you guys still sticking around here, thank you very much. We like to dive deep into these divisions, like looking at last year, looking at next year, and see what we got. Right? It's just been fun, Tyler. This has been a fun like little series
Yeah.
that we've done. It definitely helped me in my process here and what I'm doing as far as preparing for the season. So I am looking forward to that. We're going to be doing an NFL draft live stream, ladies and gentlemen. Be on the lookout for that. So the day of the NFL draft here at fantasyguru.com. We'll be doing a live stream covering from pick number one all the way through the end of the draft. So stick around. We'll be on for several hours. It's fun. We do get bathroom breaks, we go take off and come back and things like that. But we will be on talking and we'll reacting to every pick, Tyler. So you'll be on there with me. I believe Russell Clay will also be on with us. So the trio will be on talking football that night. What do you got coming on the website now? What do you got cooking? And then where can everyone find you, man?
Yeah, you mentioned the NFL draft. We've got that right around the corner now, just less than 2 weeks away. So we are doing all of the fantasy relevant rookies, trying to get profiles for them up on the website. I've got a couple wide receivers still in the chamber ready to get posted. That's largely what I've been working on, just getting ready for that NFL draft. Big night. We'll be covering it from uh, round one, picks 1 through 32, like you said. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. So stick around. We'll have all of instant fantasy reactions, instant reactions to every pick, and it's a project that we've been doing, I think, 5 or 6 years now. So, very looking forward to it once again. Yeah, we've kind of culminated a lot of research and information doing this project here of every single division, and a lot of it's going to translate toward what we talk about in the NFL draft that night. So very eager to see which teams are drafting for need, which teams are reaching, which teams are doing weird things. Hopefully, we get some trades. I saw that they've got 16 players going to this year's NFL draft out of the 32 in the first round. So only half the first round, the anticipated first round, is supposed to be there. So maybe we may see some weird things happen. So looking forward to that Thursday night. Again, we'll be live at 8 p.m. Eastern there on fantasyguru.com.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. You mentioned it. We've been doing this for years now. We've had some really good and fun moments throughout the history of our of our live streams there of our draft coverage. So make sure you tune in the night of the NFL draft. Tyler, I do appreciate your time, dude. I appreciate you hopping on with me and breaking all of the divisions down. Like I said before, it was such a fun series. You'll definitely be back on the podcast sooner rather than later. So we'll find something to talk about, I'm sure, in the upcoming weeks. But I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate you being on here with me as usual. You can find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. You guys already know where you can find me. You can also listen to the podcast and watch the podcast there on YouTube. I always promote the link there. So make sure you're following the Mind of Marsal channel and checking us out. Right? If you want to look at our mugs while we talk, check us out there on YouTube. So for the great Tyler Buecher, I am Armando Marsal. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's journey through the Mind of Marsal. Until next time.